Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our public meeting for Monday, June 15th, 2020. I'll ask for the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda, Mrs. Haley?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So the approval of the agenda would be, the approval of the agenda as presented, please. Moved by Sam, second by Lyle. All in favor? Motion's carried, thank you. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Not seeing none, we'll move to presentations and delegations. Legroulx zoning amendment, Mrs. Haley.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So welcome everyone to tonight's public meeting. For members of the public that are participating by Zoom or by phone, you will be permitted to speak to the respective application following my presentation. And prior to speaking, we request that you state your name and your address for the record. This is a public meeting under Section 34 of the Ontario Planning Act. Any person may attend the public meeting and or make written or verbal representation, either in support of or in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at this public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Township of South Glengarry before the bylaw is decided upon, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, also known as LPAT. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at this public meeting or make written submissions to the Council before the bylaw is decided upon, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal unless there are reasonable grounds to do so. So I'm going to start with our first amendment this evening, known as the Legroulx zoning bylaw amendment. This property is located at part of Lot 13, Concession 9, in the geographic township of Lancaster, now in South Glengarry, also known as 19711 County Road 25. This is the location of the entire subject property, and the existing area and business that we're talking about is located at the very south end of the property. The applicant, and who is also the property owner, recently applied for a severance to create an independent parcel to accommodate an existing business known as East Can Equipment Sales. This business has been in operation since 2005. The severance was conditionally approved with several conditions, one being the requirement to rezone the severed land to general commercial to accommodate the existing business. There you can see on this map, the area in the pink is the proposed severed area that would accommodate the location of the business kind of in this area of the subject property. The subject property is approximately 6.2 acres in size and is currently developed, containing an office and warehouse space for the business with a lot of the equipment parked on the exterior of the property. And the area that the township is proposed, this area of the township is proposed to be redesignated agricultural resource by the province, and the property owner was encouraged to apply for the severance in the zoning amendment in case we were unsuccessful at the LPAT hearing. Because if we are unsuccessful, then it would go to an agricultural resource designation and the zoning amendment and the severance would not be permitted. So Mr. Legroulx has been working with us very closely during this process. The subject property is currently designated rural district, and the proposed zoning amendment conforms to the official plan. And the United Counties of SDNG have been circulated on this application simply because it fronts on the county road and they have no comments or concerns. And I received one phone call during this process. The individual was looking for clarification of the location of the subject property and the purpose of the zoning amendment. I think they were surprised because the business had been there for so long. They were thinking we were proposing, a new business or something different in the community, but that was not the case. To date, no written comments have been received in advance of the public meeting, and this amendment will be subject to a decision of council, and a staff report including a recommendation will be brought to council for a decision in the near future, hopefully at our next council meeting. And that's it. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Haley. Is there any comments or questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Joanne, I'm curious to know how this building was built and has been operating as a business with the improper zoning since 2005. I'm just curious, what's the background in regards to that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that's an excellent question. We did a little bit of digging on that, but not a lot of digging. And it appears that the building permit was issued in error. It didn't conform to the zoning bylaw on that day.
So have they been paying commercial taxes on that building?
So the good thing about that is it doesn't matter what your zoning is, because MPAC bases everything on the use. So you'll notice your classification in a tax bill never matches your zoning. It's always going to be about the use. So if the individual would have paid taxes in the proper classification regardless of the zoning.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from members of council? Is there any questions or comments from any members of the public? And do we have any comments or questions from the owner of the property?
No, we're good.
All good?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Joanne, so the next steps from here?
So any members of the public, I would encourage to have your comments into me by the end of this week if there's any positive or negative comments that you wish to share. As I mentioned, I do hope to have a staff report on our next council meeting, which will be the July 6th meeting date. So I have nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next one, the MacDonell zoning amendment.
Okay, can you see my screen, Mr. Mayor?
Not yet, no.
Okay. Sorry about that. There we go.
Okay, we're good to go.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next amendment application known as the MacDonell zoning amendment application. This one's located at part of lot 20, concession 6 in the geographic township of Lancaster, of course now in South Glengarry. This is the location of the subject property. And the applicant, which is also the property owner, recently applied for a severance to dispose of the surplus dwelling to the farming operation. The severance was conditionally approved with several conditions. One of the conditions being the requirement to rezone the retained land to reduce the minimum lot area and to prohibit the residential construction. This map shows you the severed area containing the house, and the area in the blue is the retained land, which is the area we're speaking about this evening, which would be the vacant land. The purpose of the application is to rezone the subject property from agriculture to agriculture exception 24 to reduce the minimum lot area from 20 hectares to 16 hectares and to prohibit residential construction. The subject property is vacant and is currently being farmed. And if this amendment is approved, no residential construction will be permitted on the land and it should continue to be farmed. The subject property is currently designated agricultural resource in the county official plan, and the application conforms to the official plan and the provincial policy statement. To date, received no comments or no written comments. I have received a few phone calls seeking clarification on the location and the purpose of the amendment. I think people were just curious as to why they had to go through this process. And the zoning amendment application will be subject to a decision of council, which will be brought to you in a form of a staff report. And I also hope to have this one on our July 6th agenda. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Haley. We can go back to full screen. Thank you. So is there any questions or comments from members of council? It's pretty self-explanatory. Not hearing none. Is there anybody in the public or the owner of the property have any questions or comments? You're still muted if you're trying to speak, Ms. MacDonell. We can't hear anything. Okay.
No, you're fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions from members of council? Not seeing or hearing none. Thank you, everyone, I guess. Thank you, Mrs. Haley.
Thank you.
So the next meeting, I guess, will be the call of the chair, obviously. And I'll ask somebody to adjourn the meeting this evening. Moved by Lyle, second by Councillor MacDonell. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Joanne. We'll see
Thank
everyone
you.
at 7.
See you guys in a bit.